Hello, thrill enthusiasts and seekers of the surreal. Welcome to a space where typical online exchanges evolve into encounters with the eerie unknown. Tonight, we're not just making deals or browsing listings, we're navigating through the labyrinth of the internet's darker side. Brace yourselves for an uncanny journey as we explore three spine-tingling stories torn from the cryptic pages of Craigslist. Keep your wits about you as we plunge into the chilling depths of three disturbingly true Craigslist horror stories.
Story 1: The Craigslist Carnage. For the solitary figure of Samuel Dean, the classifieds listing seemed surreal. A steady income of $300 every week and a roof over his head, all for the simple task of overseeing an isolated farmhouse in the deep heart of southeastern Ohio. The proposition was so enticing, it was almost terrifying. Recently estranged from his lover, Dean, 48, was in desperate need for a fresh beginning when the Craigslist ad caught his attention in 2011. The advertisement mentioned a staggering number of over 100 responders. Thus, when the phone rang indicating he had been shortlisted, his heart pounded with anticipation. The only thing left was to meet his prospective employer and survey the property. After the concluding interview at a quaint local diner, Dean squeezed himself into the back of an antiquated white Buick. His soon-to-be employer, an imposing figure named John, occupied the front seat while a husky teenager, introduced as John's nephew, took the wheel. As they embarked on their journey, civilization gradually receded, replaced by an ever-thickening woodland. After an unnerving drive, the aging vehicle groaned to a halt on a secluded part of the dirt road. John informed Dean that some equipment had been left at the bottom of the hill, and Dean, eager to prove his worth, volunteered to help carry it up. John led the way through the dense underbrush, but they got disoriented and turned around. Suddenly, Dean found himself walking ahead with John and the young lad trailing him. The ominous click of a gun hammer echoed through the silence. Dean spun around just in time to see a bullet rip through his elbow. He staggered into the woods as John, swearing profusely, fired again and again. Miraculously, all the bullets missed, and Dean spent the following hours crawling through the forest, blood drenching his right side, never certain if John or his menacing accomplice would appear around the next corner. After what felt like an eternity, Dean stumbled upon a rural house under the cover of night. He begged the inhabitants to alert the authorities. In the following days, the monstrous reality unfolded. John was, in fact, Richard Beasley, a man who used his Craigslist ad to ensnare unsuspecting men into his murderous trap. His nephew was actually 16-year-old Brogan Rafferty. Together, they had already claimed the lives of 3 men, interring their bodies in shallow woodland graves. In 2013, Beasley was sentenced to death, while Rafferty received a life sentence. Story 2: Basement Bloodbath. On the chilling evening of October 31, 2017, a woman named Madeline Harper was brimming with anticipation as she embarked on a short journey across the quiet town of Salem. She was carrying a life within her, a tiny heartbeat that echoed her own, a baby girl nearing her arrival into the world. The pregnancy had been a smooth journey. Her unborn daughter was healthy, and she had recently stumbled upon an affordable set of maternity clothes on Craigslist, a perfect fit for her blossoming figure. All she had to do was collect them. Her destination was a house belonging to a certain Diana Larkin. Upon reaching the residence, Larkin welcomed Madeline warmly into her home, where they spent the following hour engaged in light conversation. Then, under the pretense of showing Madeline the clothes, Larkin guided her into the basement, transforming what should have been a pleasant afternoon into a scene straight from a horror movie. Without a shred of warning, Diana Larkin seized a heavy iron candlestick and brutally struck Madeline on the head. Reeling from the impact, Madeline was pushed onto a bare, creaky bed. With a wicked gleam in her eyes, Larkin shattered the candlestick, wielding a jagged piece of metal like a makeshift dagger. She slashed at Madeline's throat, her hands slick with blood, but the gushing wound made it challenging to maintain her grip. Without a moment's hesitation, she forced a grimy pillow over Madeline's face. Growing faint and terrified for her life and the innocent life she bore, Madeline mustered up her remaining strength for a desperate plea for mercy. "I love you," she croaked, her voice barely a whisper. Larkin, her face twisted into a grotesque smile, snatched a butcher's knife and retorted, "If you love me, you'll let me do this." She then proceeded to cut Madeline's unborn child from her womb, leaving the woman to bleed out in the cold, dark basement. Against all odds, Madeline clung onto consciousness just long enough to dial 911. She was rapidly transported to the nearest hospital where she was rushed into emergency surgery. Meanwhile, in the same building, a few rooms away, a woman was cradling a lifeless infant in the maternity ward, tearfully convincing the nurses that she'd suffered a miscarriage. The horrifying truth would only be unveiled later. Diana Larkin was sentenced to 48 years of imprisonment for her unfathomable crimes. Story 3. Roommate from Hell. In the chilling winter of 2003, a man named Walter Harris found himself in need of a flatmate to split the burdensome rent of his apartment. On the other side of the city, a mysterious individual going by the name of Richard Adams was seeking a new dwelling. Their paths crossed on the digital marketplace of Craigslist, an encounter that seemed as commonplace as any. Yet, little did Walter know, this seemingly ordinary arrangement would soon spiral into a chilling nightmare. To make the deal more appealing, Walter offered Richard the only bedroom in the apartment, a decision he felt would secure their agreement. It was precisely what Richard had been hunting for, a private space where he could harbor his dark secrets away from prying eyes. Richard was an enigma, a ghostly presence in the apartment. Hours would pass with Walter under the impression that he was alone, only for Richard to silently emerge from the shadows of his room, head bowed low, perform his chores, and retreat back into the darkness, the soft click of the door lock echoing ominously through the silence. Anxiety began to gnaw at Walter. As time passed, Richard started disappearing for lengthy periods. After 10 months of living under the same roof, during one of Richard's absences, Walter decided he'd had enough. He broke into the locked bedroom, determined to pack up Richard's belongings and bid him goodbye. What he discovered on the bed was a thick manila envelope that would freeze his blood in its veins. Inside were torn pieces of credit card offers addressed to Walter that Richard had been meticulously collecting from the trash. Alongside the shredded mail was a sheet of notebook paper containing the names, addresses, and intimate details about Walter's family, including the date of his parents' wedding. Another sheet held Walter's credit card information and passwords to various websites he frequented, a grotesque dossier of his private life. Then, amidst the chilling discoveries, Walter unearthed a diary. One entry ended with a spine-chilling sentence. "The fear still grips me every time a stranger gives me a second glance on the street. Every time a cop looks my way, I can't shake off the feeling they know." A swift online search led Walter to a shocking revelation. His roommate Richard was none other than Dino Lorenz Smith, a fugitive who had masterminded a daring jewel heist in San Francisco, escaping with diamonds worth $10 million. The front page of America's Most Wanted website confirmed his fears. A call to the police revealed that Smith was already in custody. Walter was left to ponder why Smith had been collecting his personal information, but he knew one thing for certain: he had narrowly escaped a fate far worse.